Okay, cool. So, constructs. Okay, so it's kind of a side point. Mind-only school is very different than first turning because in this school, everything is coming from your karma. Third turning. You have a karmic, which is interesting, I'll say, because that's not what the second turning says. But that's a whole big discussion. Right? This is a big misunderstanding. In the second turning, it's not, your karma is not creating everything. We can talk about that deeply. Right? Yeah. So Prasangika is not saying that everything comes from your karma. You actually say closer to the first turning. Talk about several causal factors. So we can talk about that. Okay. So in the third turning, everything's coming from your karma. So how does this work? This is why they say that yes, there's something out there that your concepts are referring to that exists as some object, right? But they're saying you can't find an object that somehow can exist outside the receiver, outside of it. So this is why they say, why? Because you have a karmic seed and flowers is both the thing being received and the receiver. Actually, more detail. They say that there actually is no thing out there as an external object. It manifests as your sense faculty and your sense consciousness. Right? So really, you can think about it like you have this thing called the foundation. This is a little technical. You have a thing called the live vinyana. This is your foundation consciousness. And you can think of it as a blob, right? And really, when you're looking at something, you can think about this blob kind of extending, and it's looking at itself, thinking it's looking at an outside world. Right? It's kind of when you get this idea of non-duality, kind of like, you know, there's no difference between me and the thing I'm looking at. It gets a little complicated, actually, this I'm not clear at, because they're not saying, it's not solipsism. It's not saying that there's just your mind and then everything out there is just you, right? There are other people. How this works, I'm a little unclear on, right? But they are saying that you're looking at a part of your own consciousness when you look at other objects. Not really looking at, like, up out there, right?
Is it a part, or is that is our mind?
You gotta be careful when you say mind, because this is why mind only they posit a whole different kind of consciousness. Because usually when you say mind, you mean your awareness, right? Like your ability to perceive things or consciousness. But when they talk about alive and yana, foundation consciousness, it's like a whole other thing. It's actually all changing things that are alive and yana. It's like this thing that are made of karmic seeds. And the karmic seed manifests as both your consciousness and the thing that you're perceiving. So it's not coming from your mind in the sense of like, it's actually like you have a karmic seed and it represents your perceptual mind, and
that's just my
yeah, the karmic seed represents your mind and the thing you're doing.
The foundation consciousness personal, or is it?
Lama really came to talk about it being universal. My understanding is that it's individual. And this is for me, that's me looking at person. So I looked at that question. So it's not, this is the kind of rejection of solipsism. There are individual separate foundation consciousnesses. Maybe, I mean, this gets into nuances. There might be some that say there's only one. You know, I think I have heard actually that in some Chinese interpretations, they talk about there being a universal singular foundational consciousness. And it's kind of like that, it's kind of like this Atman idea, that we're really all one consciousness and we just think we're nobody, yeah, that's the supreme nobody, right? But I think the original, from my understanding, that's a later interpretation. When you're talking about mindfulness and Sangha, they're a separate foundation. But I could be wrong on that. Another question? No?
I remember when we went through this course with one notation. She said, don't get stuck there though, with the mindfulness school and their version of karma and all that. It's not working.
So let's take a little. I think this is important. So we'll take a little digression. So in the mind-only school, there are no external objects. There's no actually other there are other causal factors, but it's like my understanding is this. It's kind of like there's a bunch of causal factors like in a row, and karma is one of them. And from that, karma springs forth everything. What you perceive, your perception of it, blah, blah, blah. Right? In the first turning of the wheel, karma is just one thing of a bunch of these five EMs, causal factor, and all these other things. So it's kind of like a recipe. It's like you take a little physics, you take a little environment, you take your own karma, you mix that up, and you get this thing. Right? That's your experience. So in that system, you kind of come to see like, you could have the karma for, something great to happen, but then the weather comes in and just ruins it. So it's a very complex, mine only really simplifies it. There's just kind of one like causal chain. In the first turning, it's like you've got all this nexus of causal factors bringing what happens. Now, the third turning, now this is, okay, this is a little technical. You want to break it down even more, this is for the Buddha heads, right? Bless you. Bless you again. See it. Kagyu Nyingma Shakya. They agree with the Sangha and the mind-only interpretation of how karma works. So they see it as, they use a Sangha system, right? Jason Kappa is a complete radical. You gotta look at the life of Jason Kappa. It's fascinating because he had this amazing appreciation for his teachers. Yeah, this guy. Amazing appreciation for his teachers, very devoted. Amazing book called Guru Yoga, which is like seeing the teacher in very high regard. Had many, many teachers. He told them that they were all wrong. Right? Said, oh, you're so wrong. Right? And it's interesting. I mean, he's a great example in that way because he, this is what we all struggle with, especially in the West. It's like, I don't want to, you have to be respectful and emulate your teacher, but you can't just be submissive to them and just, not think and let them just kind of become their puppet, right? He's a great example of that because he really held both. So he said, no, the highest understanding of karma is actually not a Sangha, it's actually a Vasabandhu, which is this first turning interpretation. So my best understanding, and I'm still working this out, is that in the first turning, it's kind of like karma is one little ingredient in the rest of this big causal factors. When you get into second turning of the wheel, that's still true, except your karma is interdependent with all these causal factors. Right? So this is where you get into causes and conditions. For example, let's take a car accident, just because this is an example. You have an experience to have a car. You have the karma to have a car accident. Right? You get into a car accident. Now, does that mean your karma caused the person who hit you to get up at 7 a.m., happen to be driving on the highway at that moment, happen to look at his cell phone right when you were crossing the road and hit you? Did your karma cause that? Exactly. What about his karma, right? What about, how his car works and how fast it will go? What about everybody else? What about the weather? Did that make him slow down, right? So karma stuff makes a fundamental importance because without the karma to have a car accident, you're not going to get in a car accident. But that doesn't mean that your karmic seeds are causing everything that's happening, right? You have the karmic seed to get in a car accident. It's not like your karma jumped out of your head, woke the guy up, and be like, you're gonna be late, you gotta hit him at 10 a.m., right? It doesn't work like that. So this is the kind of nuanced thing where it's a reworking of Vasubandhu, where there's these concomitant and nexus causes. You can't reduce it all to karma. But that doesn't change the fact that you can't experience anything outside of your karma. That's why it's, yeah.
So what's the cost for that?
I mean, same thing. I mean, his karma, like that has a whole nexus of causes.
So is that just by that?
No. It's interdependent.
Oh.
How is it interdependent? You can establish the existence of those things independent of your conceptualization. But that doesn't mean it creates. I mean, this gets into something subtle. The best I can say, the way I understand it, if you say that your karma creates it, you've gone into the space of legalism. Why? Because you're saying that there's nothing out there besides your karma. Right, you're saying the only thing, this is the whole idea of causing conditions. Now, how does this translate in a real way? You know, for example, you're also never going to get into a car accident if you never have the conditions for a car accident.
But those conditions can be created by.
Sure. It's always interdependent.
Exactly. So in that way, can't you say that it's all caused by it?
You can say it's all interdependent with your karma. You can't say it's all caused by it. Because if you say it's all, you've gone into a space of, I think it doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of behavior. It makes a big difference in terms of understanding things. Because let's take an example. Right? Let's say I think that the garden will happen just for my, like I want to have a literal garden, right? I want to have a literal garden with, you know, lettuce and spinach for gardening now. So like, this is so I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to meditate on the garden and I'm not going to do anything, right? I'm never going to get a garden. I have no basis of imputation. I have nothing on which to put for my karma of garden to manifest. Now, here's the tricky part. Is that also a result of my karma, that I never put in the conditions to have a garden, right? Is it also a result, I mean, did I really have, is it also a result of my karma that I don't have the causes to have the conditions for which to have the karma of a garden right? That's also true. These things are interdependent, but that doesn't mean that you can't talk about them as components, right?
Sure, but they still come from your past action. The point
but not exclusively. Not exclusively.
Well, like it's circumstantial. If it's circumstantial, then it's not.
But where do those
Wouldn't come necessarily from your karma.
Where do those circumstances come?
From physical, it depends on the basis of imputation from physical things.
Well,
So where does that come?
That's from physical laws, probably.
Yeah,
Do they exist by definition?
no, they exist independently, but that doesn't mean they don't exist at all. You're going to the extreme of they don't exist at all.
No, I didn't say that. You were saying that I said that.
So then what are you saying?
I'm saying it's all dependent on what karma.
Sure, that's what I said. It's all interdependent with your karma.
Sure, then that's what it means to say it's all created.
No, it doesn't.
What does it mean to say created?
Created can mean, just like I'm saying, that you have to think of it as things coming together,
Sure.
right? If you say that it's just coming from your karma, you're thinking that the karma is somehow creating the things. That's my own, right? But there is this idea, if you have the karma for something to happen, right? And it's not going to be projected, well, this is getting kind of controversial, but you can't really talk about it through time. It's just in any one moment. There's your karma and the thing that you're imputing.
Yeah. But the thing that you're imputing is also.
No. The thing that you're imputing is also coming from karma and its own basis of imputation.
Exactly. But
But it's not coming exclusively from
whose karma?
Whose karma?
Whose karma?
Your karma.
And then that basis of imputation is coming also from karma in its basis of
Yeah, sure.
And that's coming also from karma in its basis. So it's my karma creating it.
It's not, because what you're doing is, when you say create, here's the difference between create and polarizing. When you're saying create, you're saying there's karma and then basis. That creation, what is the definition of causality? You're like EQ, right? This is the material cause. The cause has to go out of existence by the time the result comes into effect. That's the definition of causality, right? If you say that the karma is creating, you're saying that karma has to go out of existence by the time basic imputation arises, which can happen. So this is what we mean by the fact that it's not causal. It's interdependent. So one is not coming before the other. That means that your karma is not.
So what is this causal?
Let me.
I see both, though. I mean, I see both sides, but like in your defense, like what does it matter? Like even though these things co-arise, it's all the karma is a deciding factor of whether it's going to be there or not.
Well,
so why not
yes and no,
split up
but
the
it's
karma?
not because I think this does result in practice in that you, in a very on the ground way, you can't just sit and meditate and have things happen. Now, if they don't happen to you, is that also a result of karma? Yes, you can explain it also in terms of karma. The way this results in practice is it's helpful to think, and it does correspond to reality. You have to put the causes into play, and then you also need the conditions, right? So like working out. You know, a lot of people have this thing about like, well, if I just meditate on being healthy, you know, I'll get healthy. Or, you know, this thing about, if I just meditate on good health, I don't need to go to the doctor. And this is a nihilistic view. You have to put in the causes, but then the conditions might manifest as going to the doctor, taking the medicine, doing the workout. Right? So now, is it the case that if you just meditated and decided not to work out, yes, you can also break that down to the karma basis of imputation. I'm not denying that. But it does, but on a fundamental level, having this knowledge of causes and conditions helps us realize that there's two parts going on. You have to create both the mindset and the basis. Yes.
There's like this funny joke, and the guy goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna just win the lottery ticket," and the guy goes, "Yeah, but you will have to go and buy it first."
Right.
You know, so that's it sort of kind of boils down to that. You know, if my karma is great, it's amazing. You know. And I'm poor and I want $1,000, you know, if I meditated, the karma is there for me to get it. But just meditation itself,
right,
I guess it's not going to get me $1,000.
Right.
But if you meditate properly, you will go and buy the ticket. And if you don't,
that's true. That's true.
Or the money will
So in the end,
stop.
Sure, but
or it will. Yeah.
by meditation alone, you won't get $1,000.
But
Now you're being
but
meditated.
here's the point. Your logic about meditating only can equally be applied to conditions. You know, you could also say, well, if I just create all the conditions, this is kind of how sadhanas work actually. If I just create all the conditions, then my karma for money is going to have to flower. And that's actually kind of true too. It's just that it's not going to happen at all without the karma. Right? It's definitely not. This is the idea. The karma is a sine qua non. It's like this. This is why they keep talking about a seed, right? A seed, you're not going to get an orange tree if you don't have an orange seed. You're also not going to get an orange tree if you don't have water, sunlight, good soil, etc. But those things can be a little bit more. Might use Miracle-Gro, might use Howden. You know, you might use a fake bulb. You might use a real sun, right? You have to have conditions, but those things are not. Those don't have to be definite. So this is why we talk about karma more, because but conditions are similar in that you could also use the logic. If I create the right conditions, I can just focus on conditions. Whatever good karma I have in there is gonna flower. Let's move on a little bit. Yeah. Because we can go all night on this. We can have it for like 3 years.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
if we're going to emptiness, we're going to
We're going to empty this a little bit. Sure. Empty this a little bit.
well, the X
Oh, okay. Wait. Do you want to do them?
I just want.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Let's do. Let me get a little bit of these. Let me try to. Okay. Wait. Let's birds in the zone. We're just killing birds. That's not good. Okay. So let's do. let's use the pen, but with the 3 attributes. How's that sound? So back to mind only. Over here. Mind only really breaks down to these 3 attributes. Did we get into this last time? Constructs, what are the other ones? Changing things, and so what's a construct? Yes, it's like a sky cloud. It's funny because I took philosophy for undergrad, and they talked a lot about one of my teachers talked about this idea of skyhooks, which is it's funny because it's like the same metaphor basically. Skyhook, it's something that's impossible that you dream of because it's this idea of like bootstrapping, like a hook that existed in midair that could lift itself up. Right? It's a great image because it's kind of like it's something that can't really exist on any foundation of anything, right? It's something that you could be dreaming of, like a skyhook, or like well, you take the boss. The boss that's angry from its own side without you calling it. That's like a sky. It's something. It's an impossible way of existing. Okay. Okay. Let's go with it. So, constructs are your mental constructs. They're things that you just kind of make up in your head. Right? Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. So let's take the cup. But I have the cup. I'm looking at the cup. This is going to, for all of you guys with that GJ drawing, this is very simple, right? I look at the cup, and there's a cup out there. And then I have a concept of the cup, right? Now, when I'm looking at the cup, am I looking at the cup, or am I looking at my concept of a cup? Right. It happens to be right. In this school, your concept of a cup is referring to a cup that's out there. So, this is in 3rd term, so this is my own. Now.
So the concept is like the operating system, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So operating system, then you just compare what you see in front of you, and if it's a match, then it's a cup. It's a cup.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like, well, again, it co-arises. I mean, in this school, the cup itself and your concept of the cup co-arise. It's just you happen to be right, and there's a specific cup out there. Right? They're not interdependent. They're independent from the point of view of causality. They were caused by the same thing. But once you have your concept of the cup and the cup itself, they're distinct, right? So you have the concept of the cup and the cup itself. Okay, now we have these other concepts about the cup. You know, green tea is the best tea that there is. Everybody knows that green tea is the best tea that there is. Right? Do those concepts refer to reality? No. No. So, in this school, the biggest mistake that we make is we think the concepts that we apply to objects, namely the qualities, right? Knowing that this is cup and calling it a cup, that's fine. You're right. Knowing that this cup is saying this is a good cup, right? And thinking that's inherent in the cup, that's the cause of all your stuff. So you have a dependent thing out here, and it's actually void of any qualities in and of itself, right? You can't say good, bad. I think it goes as far as saying you can't even say weight, because they say on this thing, we can't even talk about the weight of the cup until you have the concept of weight. See how it's getting closer to the ego, right? This is a stepping stone, right? So there's definitely an object out here that is a cup. But when I start to conceptualize it as, well, what's the weight of the cup? What's the temperature of the cup? These are all, they're going to say mental constructs. And you can validly put them on the cup. I mean, you're not wrong, right? Your conceptualizations are valid. What you're wrong about is thinking those conceptualizations are part of the cup. So
you're collapsing things.
Collapsing things, yeah. That's fine to say collapse. So I was going to say, this is for all you guys who have done landmark. This is a kind of landmark forum. This is their whole shindig, right?
The story.
Yeah, it's all mind-opening. There's what happened, right, which is like the cup out here, you know, the reality of the object, and then there's a story. It's good or bad, it's old, it's all this other stuff, yeah.
So I don't get how weight would fall, unless you're saying like heavy or light, but if you're talking about measurements, then. What about fine.
What about right, yeah. Right, these things are relative. They're not inherent as the object. The conceptualization is based on comparing something to arbitrarily something else, right? There's no inherent weight.
What is inherent?
Say it.
What is inherent?
In this school? Like what qualities are inherent?
What is inherent? Wait, it's different, yeah.
In this school?
Maybe not quality, but maybe something else besides quality.
So you gotta go back to like inherent existence. You see, in Prosopica, this is simple because there's a million words that refer to inherent existence. Now, all the other schools, they say it is inherent in this way, not inherent in this way, right? What is inherent, they say, like, one thing I think they say is that it exists naturally. So, like, I love how Burson says it, it's wrapped in plastic. Like, the delineation of this being its own individualized object, that's inherent to the object. You know, where this cup starts and where it ends, that's inherent to
The
the
size
object.
of it, the outline, the actual physical dimension.
I wouldn't even go that far. I would more just say the fact that you're identifying this as its own individualized object, worthy of a name.
The timeline thing? I thought that's in my concept. What exists by definition
No.
from the cup?
That this is an individualized object. You
functions.
But
Not
not
just
any, not size, weight, or any kind of qualities.
no, because they're gonna say that. I
And
mean,
all
this,
objects are the same.
Hmm?
And all objects are the same.
no, they're not all the same. It's just that when you, it's also size and weight. It's not false, right? It's not like saying size and weight doesn't exist. It's just you're confused when you think that that's inherent in the object.
But what isn't there?
The fact that if you go look, let's look at it this way. If I have a concept cup, okay, and then all of a sudden I strip away my concepts, right, and I'm looking at the cup non-conceptually, I'm going to find this cup, this object that I'm referring to. Now, now let's go back and I talk about temperature of the cup, right? Strip away all my concepts again. I'm not going to be able to find the temperature of the cup because that's a conceptualization based on relative to other things, measurements. I'm going to have to go back in the world of conceptualization to make any sense of temperature.
What is this object that I will find when I strip away all the conceptualizations? What is it?
An individualized object. That is a basis of
There's no
conceptualization.
qualities, no size, no weight, no description.
Yeah, I mean, it's a subtle point. I mean, a lot of this, in this school, it's difficult because it's some essence. It has an essence. It has an essence. But the way they explain it is there's something about it that makes it a cup. I mean, this is also why the school breaks down, right? Because they're saying there is something, this is why Prosopica says you can't differentiate the essence of something and the quality of something, right? Because they're going to say what you're calling the essence is just a project. This is when you get into the next step. This was what you're alluding to, is that what you're calling the essence is just a conglomerate of qualities, right? That's the next step. But in this school, they're going to say, no, there's something that makes it an essence that's cupness, but it's independent from the qualities that you attribute to the cup.
Can I maybe like create a little distinction here? Sure. I think what you're struggling with is by agreement, let's just say that, by agreement, it's a cup. By agreement. I mean, you don't have to go any further. That would be that, just that. I think any other quality you would like to attribute to this cup, for example, it's a big cup. You know, if you drink Slurpee all the time from 7-Eleven, that to you would look like a small one. So now we argue. And I think this is...
Yeah, though the only thing is, though, when you talk about agreement, you're establishing the existence of the cup by convention. And then all of a sudden, they're going to say that, like, you don't need anybody else. If you strip away all your concepts, all your mental constructs, you're going to see God.
Well, that's just so we can linguistically somehow create the distinction between the actual objectivity of the cup and other qualities that we
Right.
add to it. And
Right.
that's sort of, so I can just.
Yeah, objectivity, right, there's an objectivity to the cup, that's it, that makes it cup.
Yeah.
That's a good way to say it. I mean, I think it's good that it really went on the definition that what you conceptualize in a cup, the essence of the cup you can find out there in the cup. Anything that you talk about the cup is this, is that, when you talk about adjectives, that's not my opinion. Apart from concepts.
Who can find this?
Somebody can see things not acceptable. I don't think you have to be able to see things not acceptable. That's a whole other discussion. I've been looking at that one a lot too, and that's very interesting. I won't even go to it. I'm not even go to it.
Like Ari and Beyond, right? Is that what you mean? Ari and Beyond, not exactly.
I thought this was cool. This is really cool. I like subject, but this is a really complicated. Gaelic.
Okay.
Gaelic says a whole different thing about what it means to see things not conceptually than the other preschool. So they say, okay, I'll just throw this out there. The Gaelic say that you can see mental constructs, you can see a mental construct non-conceptual. I'll just put that out.
Your own or others?
Your own. You can see your own mental constructs non-conceptually.
So then that means you can see it.
Yeah, it means a lot of things. That's a whole lot. Okay. Okay, so what is it? So emptiness, totality, right? Okay, let's do that. So the pen. So in this school, what is the emptiness of the pen in relation to these dependent things and these constructs? We've distinguished these two things. You got this mental concept that you're putting on the thing, and then you got the thing that you're missing. What would emptiness be? What is emptiness, by the way?
That's easy.
I'm going to do the context of this. We'll get it there. We'll get it. Cement in my mind. So, pen. Right? You have a concept of a pen, and there's this thing that you're labeling on the pen. What is emptiness always? For those of you who know. Is it a positive thing or is it a negative? Okay, it's a negative thing. What do you think in this school this pen is absent of?
This.
Just don't worry. The pen does exist by definition in this school. The essence of the pen exists by definition. What things don't exist by definition in terms of the pen? Yeah, characteristics of the pen. So in this school, it's a simple formula. Emptiness equals dependent things minus your wrong constructs about them. So, for example, this pen is long. That's a conceptualization. You think your wrong construct is you think that your concept wrong is inherent in the pen. That's also a concept you have. You have concepts about your concepts, right? Not only do you have the concept of the pen being long, that's fine. You have a concept that the longness of the pen is part of the pen itself, and not your conceptualization. The emptiness of the pen is the fact that that concept of long can't be found in the pen itself. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, let's do the proximity given. Right? Proximity given. So, proximity given. Okay, so this is a pen, right? Pen. Sure. So I take the pen and I go like this and put it on. And I throw it. Okay, what is it to the dog? Something run after, but I got it again. Chew toy. It's a chew toy. I'm leaving you with it. I'm leaving you with this. Okay, so is it the pen? That's a dog. So it's a chew toy. So this is a chew toy. The dog. Okay, so no human, no dog. What is it? Okay, that's emptiness, right? That kind of like what's left, right? So this is the difference right now. So we take this a step further when we get to crossing Pico. In this school, no, there's a pen here. You just have certain wrong ideas about it. This is really interesting actually because Berzin talks about this and he says in every other school you really can talk about emptiness as emptiness because I don't know if this is necessarily true word, but he says empty implies when something is empty of something, there's still something left over, right? There's like a container. Like when you have a glass that's empty, sure, there's an absence of the liquid, but there's something that is empty. There's something that's implied that's left there, right? The cup is empty. My belly is empty. Say it. Well, the emptiness is the absence, but when you get rid of the absence, there's something still there, right? This is fine. Now, same thing. Mind only, that's fine. You have a construct of the pen, right? You take away your construct about the pen, and there's something left over. This non-conceptual awareness of the pen that's kind of the pen without qualities, whatever that means, right? But there's something left over. Now, you just pointed to it. The highest understanding of emptiness, he really says more avoidance. Because when you take all the things away from your side, right, that you are using to designate as pen, there's nothing left over. It's completely void. There is nothing you can strip away to find some essence. It's all there. There's no thing there. That's why we talk about get rid of the dog, get rid of the person, what's left. It's just absence. It's not nothingness. Now this is the thing.
So nothing has an essence?
Nothing has an essence. But this is interesting because this is where this school is kind of a stepping stone. You see, first turning of the wheel says things have identity and essences inherently. Right? The essence of the cup is part of the cup. They also say it's a natural basis for labor. That's all other point. But the cup is a cup, and it also has these qualities. Hot, cold, blah, 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 blah. Identity. It is this. It is that. Mind only takes an extra step and says, well, it has an essence of cupness, but all these other things that you're adding on top of it, it is this, it is that. Those are conceptualizations that are not inherent. They're not wrong. You can validly put that on the cup. But they're not inherent in the cup. Prasangika goes the whole 9 yards, right? Prasangika says, no, there's no essence, there's no identity, there's nothing that you can say is findable in the cup. Anything that you start with in terms of your procedure side, when you start to analyze it, you're not going to be able to find it fundamentally full of essence in the cup. Right? So it's not nothingness though either. I'm not saying that there's nothing there, it's just everything there is interdependent. And our suffering and everything that we're trying to do is find these fundamental emphases, first causes. First cause is the big one. Self is the other big one. Who am I? I love this example. You can have, Brisbane was talking about this. You can, a prostitute says, you can have my body, but you'll never have me. This idea that there's this me, that's your essence. Independent of your body, your mind, and what we call the 5 attributes, right? And this is the fundamental cause of your stuff. That you think that there is a you that's fundamental, and you do everything you can to defend that myth, and to promote it, and to please it, and promote it over other people. This is the source. This whole belief in essences, right? So. Let's get this on the ground a little bit. So I think this helps as an example. But let's go back to school 3 because it's a good stepping stone. So let's just apply. So think of an insult. What is an insult that you honestly believe would be like self-existently insulting? You can say it. Got it.
Okay.
Okay, what's one?
I have a good one.
Okay.
I was told to use my brain as an input in a meeting.
Okay. So, like you're dumb.
Yeah, that was a nice insult.
Okay. So can we all get on board with that? Like if somebody called you dumb, it would be insulting, right? I mean, you gotta like, it's gotta have some resonance for you, or else this isn't right. So if I say no,
I was never taught that. It's fine.
just kidding. Okay, if you were, it doesn't have to have that. Okay, so somebody says you're dumb. Okay. So here's the thing. Construct is I am dumb. You are dumb. That's a construct, right? Yeah. I am dumb. I am dumb. That's okay. So the construct is I am dumb. What is the Shenron? What is the thing that's the basis that you're labeling? Well, what is the basis? I mean, in the context of this conversation. In the so you're sitting there thinking you're getting the construct I am dumb. What do you label that? If you believe what the person is saying, let's just simplify it. What do you label it on?
So,
Okay, let's make it a little bit. They're telling me I'm dumb. They're telling me I'm dumb. What's the basis? Where are you getting the meaning? Right. How does it feel? Where are you constructing this meaning from? Where is it?
From the concepts.
Well, that's where the concepts are. Okay, the concept. They say the concept plays in the Shenron, right? The concept is the thing that interacts with the dependent. So what is the dependent thing out there that you're getting the meaning? They're telling me I'm dumb. But what's the basis?
I'm not the other person.
You are dumb versus being dumb.
No, that's what the phrase I'm dumb refers to. What is? I mean, somebody says you were dumb, right? Someone says you were dumb, and you take it to mean something. What are you applying meaning to? That's a simple way.
That person said it to you.
Them or sound, right? You don't see them. You don't look at them and say, "Oh, they're telling me I'm dumb." Right? I mean,
you experience it through them vocalizing.
right. I mean, they said some words. They said some decimals. I mean, that's what happened, right? We can go to math. This is what happens.
Yeah.
They said some decimals.
You translated that.
Are they words? Sure. Sure. You can say in this school, you can say each word is its own.
Sure, but they trigger your concept.
Sure. Totally.
That the concepts you're familiar with.
Totally. But where is that concept? Right. Is it in the words? What are the words? They're sounds. They're sounds. Right? So, if we really look at it, somebody calls you dumb. Why are you angry? Right. You put meaning behind it.
You're taking those vibrations in and turning.
Right. Now, here's the thing. When we get insulted by something, is that what we really think is happening? What do we actually think is happening? Where do we think the insult is coming from? We think it's coming from the other person. Where is what is it actually coming from the other person? Sounds. Let's go through it again. So, where is the insult actually coming from? Is it?
The insult?
Where is the insult coming from? What specifically? Coming from your construct. Right? So this is the ignorance. Somebody calls you dumb. What happens is some sounds.
If you have no
And
concept of dumb, it doesn't mean anything.
Right, exactly. So who's at fault?
Wow.
Whose fault is it? Yeah. You have a construct. But now here's the ignorance. It's not that you're wrong. it's valid. But actually, if you really look at it, the thing that makes you suffer is the fact that you think that that meaning is inherent in those sounds.
I had a better sense of humor.
Yeah, or I mean, these are one of the, I think this is a little experiential maybe, but I think once you really get that, this is meaning I'm applying to something, rather than this is what is happening, it reframes it in it's a whole different thing.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So if someone says you're dumb, and
What do you
then,
say?
and then they fail you, you get a C minus, and you have to do this 5th grade one more time. So there are actual consequences to someone who says, you know, you're dumb, and then there are consequences. Now, of course, yes, those are just it's just the sound that we conceptualize, you know, in our mental construct. But there are actual, you know, consequences that we feel. We suffer them, we go through them, and it actually breeds certain results, you know,
Yeah.
that you can physically experience.
Yeah, this gets into a nuance. I mean, okay. This is a little, maybe I don't need to answer it this way, but this is how I'm thinking about it. That your constructs, they're unchanging things. Right? Construct is an unchanging thing. It's like, it doesn't, when I say unchanging, it doesn't vary though, right? It's not like the atoms in this cup are constantly changing, right? Your concepts about things are not like that. They're just like a boom. Right? So this is an important distinction though, because when we talk about concepts in Buddhism, we say that they're not physical and they're not mental. Because what does affect change, you have a mind that is changing, which perceives an unchanging concept. And that's what affects change. Right? The concept of itself can't do anything. Because it's unchanging. I mean, what do we know? What are unchanging things? Are they caused or not caused? They're not caused, can they affect anything? No. So a concept, you're right, can't do anything. But your relationship to your concept, I mean, that's what we're talking about. Your relationship to that concept, oh hell yeah. That's why you suffer. That's why grasping to these concepts is real, it creates your suffering. But it's not the concept itself. Exactly. Yeah.
So even if the teacher told you you were dumb, it doesn't matter if they told you you were dumb if you actually failed class. That has nothing to do with the fact that you failed class. They're two separate things. The fact that you failed a class is because you failed a class, because you didn't know the answers to whatever test you failed, whatever. But those two things are separate.
Yeah, that's true. I think you'd say in the school, I mean, it kind of gets a little like a zen weird because, I mean, even fails equality,
Okay.
right?
But that result would have happened whether or not the teacher said you were dumb or not. Because those are two separate things.
Yeah, I guess you'd say that. Oh, yeah, it's because they say that things are not causal, they're coming from your karmic seeds. So one sprouting is not necessarily, yeah, you'd say that way. I mean, what you would really say in that case, like, what does it mean to fail? Like, you put the meaning fail on these 3 marks, right? What happened? There were 3 red lines. What did it mean to you? You failed in your best person, right? So then, the emptiness then is, so what is the emptiness in this case? So we talked about there's a construct and then there's a thing that you're including. Then what's the emptiness? What is the absence? We've been saying it.
Right, the construct is not inherently applied.
Right, now which concept?
Construct.
Which construct?
And
So all the constructs not inherently implied?
the construct that the concept that you have of it is inherent in the thing itself.
But which one? Because some of the constructs are inherent. Being dumb. This is where you get to the sound ying.
Right.
That does, you can have a concept of those sounds, right? Those do exist in the words.
Which construct?
Huh?
Which constructs are in there?
You could say, I don't know how you do it with language, but I think the vocalization, the B as a vocalization, the dumb as a vocalization, that does apply to those sounds.
And that's a mental construct.
It's both a mental construct and definitive in the object. It's both. You have a mental construct that is true about the object.
But the mental construct that I have inherently applies to the object.
In that case, yes.
But it's not the mental construct that inherently applies to the object.
The mental, I'm not, it's
The object has some essence, but the construct doesn't inherently apply to that. I think that the construct is in the object, and that is always.
It depends on which
That might be
construct.
correct, because the construct is in my mind.
When I say inherently applies, I mean by definition. So what we're saying is there are some mental constructs that are true by definition of the object itself. Like cup, like pen, like the sound, like the form of the sound. Those exist by definition in the object. Meanings and stuff like that do not. So that's what we mean by exist by definition. Okay.
Sorry, we have to go.
No,
I apologize. Thank you.
Okay. I think it's wrap up time. So let's just take a moment to sit quietly for a second. So bring back that original intention you had at the beginning of class. Again, this can work post-facto too. So you have a reason for coming here. This has to do with a karmic path. You know, complete the karmic path, which means you had a reason for coming here. You had that intention throughout your time here. Now you want to say, after the fact, really seal the deal. In my time here, go towards that goal. And that makes this complete. And say, best one is to dedicate it for enlightenment because those seeds will never stop giving their effects until you become enlightened. So it's a constant giver. Just make that clear in your mind. And put it towards your intention. Thank you for coming, guys. It's a pleasure to be teaching again.
Hello.
And we're out.